Hello everyone, I am here to talk a little bit about the challenges I gave you on a spreadsheet program to come up with how you calculate a savings plan either with or without interest. I'm going to do it in Google Docs. You would of course be able to do it in any sort of spreadsheet program you wanted to, Google Docs or Microsoft Excel being what you're most likely to have available on your computer. So if we're doing it in Google Docs, we go to Create and then click on Spreadsheet, and then we get a brand new spreadsheet that opens up for us. And let's see, we have a choice to make right here, I guess. First of all, do we want to keep our records by month or by year? I'm going to assume at the moment that we want to keep them by month rather than by year, so we'd need columns that were month and the balance. And I'll also make another assumption that I put in my first $50 in month one, so that at the end of month one, I have $50 in my bank account. And then remember what we did last time. I can do a couple of things to populate this month column. One of the things that I can do, I don't think we did this in class, one of the things I could do is to give the computer an example of what I want it to do. I want it to do 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And the computer's pretty good at picking up on examples. So if I click and highlight these 3 cells and then go over to this little blue box, which makes this turn into a black plus, I could just click and drag as far down as I want, and it's going to take that example and run with it. Right? So it could tell what I was doing based on the example that I gave it. The other way to do this, same thing, I'm just going to hit undo so it disappears the things that I have just done. So the other way to do this is to use the equal sign to say I want to make a formula, and my formula is going to be look at the previous month and up the number by 1. And you can see in the first example it takes that formula right here and it computes 2. And when I click and drag this down, since it's going to now repeat that formula sort of ever after this, it's going to do the same idea of an increment of 1. Each time if I click on this formula, I can see what's happening. It's looking at the cell above and it's adding a 1 to it, or what we call incrementing it by 1. We also know what's happening in terms of our balance each month. In our balance each month, I'm going to take the previous balance, so I'm going to say equals to do a formula, and I'm going to say look at the previous balance, so I can type in B2 or click on the cell B2, and then I want to add 50 to that, right? I started with a balance of 50, and each month I'm adding 50, so B2 plus 50, and I can click somewhere in the middle of that cell and hover over this blue square and drag it down as far as I might want to go. So I'm going to stop it here at a little more than 3 years. So you could see if I did this at 3 years at exactly 36 months, I've got $1,800, and it's relatively simple to do. I can add some more bells and whistles if I want to. Maybe I want to change the amount that I'm going to add each month, but I'm going to save that for the next challenge, which is to do something that would hopefully you're not stashing your money underneath your mattress, right? That's the kind of balances you're going to get here is what you're going to get if you're just putting it into a shoebox. You're not earning any interest. Typically, we want to be putting things in a bank account or a CD or some other kind of investment vehicle so we can get interest on it. So let's do that challenge. We have, we want to still, let's say, go by month, although we can talk if you're interested in how to set this up as a yearly process. And we want to do now interest every year. So I'm going to look at the balance, the month and the beginning balance. So the balance, and then I'm going to look at how much interest I earn. So remember, we did this in class, and we're able to add interest, but here I'm also going to add a new deposit every month. So then I'll end up with a new balance. And I don't have to have this many columns, but I think if we put a lot of columns in, it helps us to really see what's happening. So I will also include, after this sheet, I'll make up a sheet that's a little trimmer, because you can actually do all of this, it turns out, with 2 columns if you're interested. So I want to do the same thing as I started with before. I want to have month 1, and then after that I'm going to just click on my first month and add 1 to it. So that'll do month 2, 3, 4, etc. for me. I'm going to want to start with, let's say I come in, should I do $0 to come in or $50 to come in? Here's a choice that we're making. It's not necessarily clear in the question that I asked. I will go ahead and start with a balance of $50 that we had put in at some previous time. Now I'm going to earn interest on this $50. So let's come over here. I'm going to do something off on the side of my spreadsheet over here. And I'm going to say, I'm going to do my interest rate here. And I'm going to do, it gave me an annual interest rate. And the annual interest rate that I asked you to do was 1%, which is pretty typical these days for what you could get out of a savings account. So I'm going to put it in as 1%. I'm going to type in 0.01. So notice that it just spits that back out to me. It adds a little 0 on the beginning. I can also make it do that as a percent if I like. If I come over here, I can format that as a percent. It's not necessary because it just changes how it looks. So now notice what's happened. It's changed to 1.00%, and when I had it just formatted as a number, it said it was 0.01, right? So it's flipping back and forth between those two. Feel free to pick out however you most like it to be. So we're saying our annual interest rate is going to be 1%, but notice that that's not what we need, because we're not going to earn interest every year. We're going to get a statement from our bank each and every month. So we need to take this annual interest rate and turn it into a monthly interest rate. How do I do that? Well, to go from annual to monthly, we would have to divide by how many months there are, which is 12. So I'm going to do an equal sign to tell it I'm interested in writing a formula. I'll either click up here on cell H3 or H2, sorry, or type in H2, and then I will take that and divide it by 12. So here I've got 0.0833333333, and I want to have that as a percent. So that is 0.08%. So it's much less than 1%, right? Which it should be, because we took 1% and then we chopped it into a whole bunch of tiny little pieces. Okay, so I'm also, while I'm at it and just writing things for reference over here, I'm going to write in my monthly deposit. That way I could change that monthly deposit if I wanted to at a later date. And I'm going to go ahead and write in that my monthly deposit is going to be $50. Oh, and look, remember, I can always format these things. So I'll format it as dollars so it looks very nice there. Okay, now I think I'm ready to go here. If I click over on that interest cell, we know that we want to pick up our balance that we have, and we're going to multiply that by our monthly interest rate, because remember, it's multiplying by this 0.08% that gets us our interest in this month. And our monthly interest rate is teeny tiny, so each month we're not getting very much interest here. So let's click on that, which is cell H3. Now we need to put dollar signs before the H and before the 3. Oops, I did not put a dollar sign there. There we go. A dollar sign before the H and then a dollar sign before the 3, because I want to make sure that this formula, even when I copy it down, that it always looks at exactly this cell H3. I don't want it looking anywhere else, just right there. So when we hit enter, we find out that we earned a whopping 4 cents of interest. So it's easier to see that as 4 cents if I go ahead and format it as currency. And now I can go on to my new deposit. So new deposit I can just pick up from this monthly deposit spot, right? So I'll say equal, my new deposit is going to be this $50, except for the fact that I want to make sure I look at that cell no matter where I am in my column. So I'm going to put dollar signs before the H and before the 4. So indeed it's picked up that new deposit of $50. My new balance is going to be composed of 3 things. And I'll click on each of them. My old balance plus the interest that I earned plus the new amount that I deposited. So total those all up in your head if you want, or in a calculator. We'll see it should be 50, 50, and 4 cents. So I think I'm going to get $100.04. So really not necessarily that impressive. Oh, and isn't it funny? It's done here a combination of dollars, except for it's given me a lot of decimals. I want to trim that to just 2 decimals. So there, when I clicked on Format as Currency, it did that for me. Okay, let me then turn to the second month. We already entered what the second month is in terms of a formula. Let's enter the balance in the second month. The balance that we start with is going to be the same as this new balance that we had before. So we're just going to do equal, copy this over, hit enter. And I think again I want to just click this Format as Currency so it stops giving me all those decimal places. Then here I want to do the same as I did before, right? And I could actually just copy this down, but let's just do it one more time quickly. I'm going to do equal, pick up my balance, multiply my balance by this monthly interest rate. And then I have to remember that I'm going to want dollar signs before the H, oops, before the H and before the 3, so that I always look at that specific, this specific cell H3 and don't move that down as I copy the formula down in a minute. So that's going to be, now I've just about doubled that. I've now made 8 cents, which is awesome. My new deposit is just the same as it was before. It's this monthly deposit. And again, remember what we did. We did a dollar sign before the H and a dollar sign before the 4 to make sure it picked that up again. And then finally our new balance is going to be the sum of our old balance plus our interest plus our new deposit. Now often when I do, and I'm going to format this as currency. So when I do stuff like this, usually I do 2 lines before I just pick up everything and copy it. I just find by the second line, I've done everything that I might need to do, and I've made sure everything's going to be okay. So I just highlighted this, just clicked in the middle, held down and highlighted the whole thing. I want to have this whole box highlighted, and then I want to hover over this blue square until I get that black plus sign and pull it all the way down as far as I happen to want it to go. Oh, I guess I wanted it to go a far time now, so this is about, I think I did it for nearly 100. Let's go to about 3 years and see what we had, as that's what we looked at before. Here at 36 months, at 3 years, I now have $1,826.50, and we can compare this. I'm going to flip over to the previous spreadsheet. We can compare this to the previous one. Previously, at 36 months, we only had $1,800. So by keeping it in this interest-bearing account, we were able to accumulate $26 more. You know, maybe that's not so impressive. It's honestly not that impressive of a rate, but bank rates aren't that impressive. But you can see that we end up accumulating lots and lots of money, and our amount of interest that we're earning every month is steadily going up. By the time we're nearly at 100 months, we're earning more than $4 of interest each month, as compared with the only 4 cents of interest that we were earning right at the beginning, which really is sort of the magic of compound interest. So ask me questions if there's anything about this that doesn't make sense. Also ask me if you want me to make any other spreadsheets. I'm happy to help you make spreadsheets for specific situations that you're interested in. And I'll see you all on Monday.